I was in a discussion with a Muslim woman the other day, and, we got to the point where she was saying that the Quran was not a sexist book. And I thought that was a very interesting claim, because obviously it is. And to point out that the Quran was sexist, I pointed to an actual, verse in the Quran that gave husbands permission to strike their wives. It's actually a very, very horrifying verse, because at first, it gives, men authority over their wives, which is something the Bible does as well. And then it also, gives them a 3-step plan to punish their wives. So basically, it's the first step is, I think, to ignore them if I remember correctly, and then it's to basically not sleep with them, and then it's to strike them. And the thing is if they don't do the first one, they move to the second one, they move to the third, and the third one being to, actually strike them. So I pointed out that verse that gave, to clarify, men authority over, women, and also, a 3-step plan on how to punish their wives when, they misbehave. So I pointed that verse thinking that it was, completely impossible for her to defend this, which I was, of course, right. So first she, she comes back and she's like, I'm not going to touch on the striking thing at all. I'm just going to talk about, men having authority over women. And I was like, that's bad enough. But, go back for a second. Are you really telling me that, one, I'm ridiculous for thinking that the Quran is sexist, but also you are not willing to actually defend the point that it gives, men the actual permission to strike their wives? That's something that you don't actually, that you're not even willing to defend. So eventually, I get her to address the point that the Quran gives men permission to strike their wives. And she says, I'm not going to defend this myself. It's a very complicated issue. I'm going to point to an actual, Quran scholar, and then he will defend the point for me. And I said, okay, that's fine. If there actually is a way to defend this verse, I'd like to know. I'd actually like to believe that billions of people aren't believing a religion that gives men the actual permission to strike their wives. So she points to a scholar's argument about this verse. And first, it actually was, a very horrifying argument. And I actually, reading it really made me sad because, it makes me sad that there's actual, billions of people that are defending this. But I actually want to talk about the scholar's argument because I actually thought he'd, be able to come up with one, and his argument was horrifying. First, he says that, there was actually a really bad domestic abuse problem going on, in these, Muslim countries at the time. So Allah actually, told Muhammad to put this, in the Quran, 3-step plan, because it actually stopped, or it would actually limit domestic abuse. Because when husbands have to do a 3-step plan, if they can solve it in the first 2 steps, then by the time it comes to striking them, only a few, times will that even happen. So domestic abuse would actually go down. And, the problem with that argument is if Allah really wanted to, stop domestic abuse and, actually wanted, that not to be a thing, he would simply tell Muhammad to put in the Quran, don't hit your wives at all. If he actually wanted to stop domestic abuse, instead of doing a 3-step plan that would make, less women get abused, it would make more sense to just say don't abuse your wives in the Quran itself. And then, this lady scholar pointed out, it said, the scholar said, keep in mind, this is only for very disobedient wives. These are only for husbands who have tried everything with their wives and their wives still won't listen. Only then can the husband strike his wife. And I thought that was the most ridiculous thing in the world. That woman is a person. It's not up to the man to be able, decide when, what she should do, and if she doesn't obey him, punish her in different ways, and then only then strike her. To me, that's just as sexist. And, keep in mind, her whole point, the Muslim I was discussing with, her whole point was that the Quran was not a sexist book. And then, to me, that's the most sexist thing I've ever heard. The fact that she thinks, or that, her religion has brainwashed her to believe that it is not sexist to, have a bunch of punishments for your wife that lead to striking at the end. To me, that's the most ridiculous and the saddest thing in the world. Yet she literally said that it was fine, the Quran said, just, a husband can strike his wife because it's only after, the husband has used all other, options first. And, that's horrifying. That's horrifying. There's billions of people out there that look at that and think that that is okay and that that is not sexist. And then the scholar had one more argument, which I actually thought was the most hilarious thing that I have ever, heard in my entire life. He said striking your wife is more of a symbolic gesture to show her who's in charge and that she's doing wrong, and you're actually not supposed to leave a mark or anything like that. So basically you strike your wife in a way that doesn't leave a mark to kind of just show her who's in charge. And I thought that was absolutely hilarious. First, because the Quran doesn't say that. There's nowhere in the Quran that says, hey, you're not actually supposed to leave a mark on your wife. And I feel like, if Allah was actually real, he would point out that, if he actually doesn't want, women to be severely abused, he'd point out that you're not actually supposed to leave a mark in the actual Quran, or he wouldn't put that verse in there in the first place, actually. But yeah, so the scholar's he's not actually leaving a mark, which I think is ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous to believe that what that verse is saying is that you're supposed to hit your wife in a way that doesn't actually leave a mark or anything like that. Because one, it doesn't say that, and two, that makes literally no sense at all. And this was not just some random Muslim arguments. This was an actual Quranic scholar's argument, someone who's actually studying the Quran, devoting their life to understanding the Quran. This was his argument on what this verse actually means. And since her argument was that the Quran is not sexist, and my argument that it was, and the best her scholar could come up with was, these things that, one, you're not leaving a mark, which Quran doesn't say, two, that, this is only a last resort, which, still give permission to strike their wives, and three, it was to encourage Muslims to not, abuse their wives, which you could have just said, in the Quran, not to abuse your wives, instead of making a 3-step plan to end up actually striking your wives. To me, this is obviously a sexist book, and how anyone can say otherwise is absolutely mind-blowing, and that's all I have to say in this video.